All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great week here so far. Thanks so much for stopping by. Like these usual Wednesday live streams, we're going to go for 1 hour. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks. So as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames, they get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. And I see we have a bunch of people who have already joined in. So happy to see Brian, Linda, Lanceloth, Theodore, Danny, Nicholas, Vishal, Truck and Car Guy, and Zachary. Thanks for stopping by. And let me see, Ian and Wheatman, okay, bassist, and yeah, just a bunch of people. So thanks so much everyone for coming by. And Lanceloth, also thank you for gifting 10 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity. And yeah, I mean, with that, there's no reason why we can't have a lot more people here getting priority answering, because his generosity every week is just exploded the amount of members here. So hopefully we get even more conversation here tonight. I'm doing a pretty good job, I think, keeping up, especially with the 2-hour ones on Sundays, to answer just about everyone's questions. But for these ones where it's a little more time constrained for the Wednesday ones here, that's great to have more members so I can get that priority answering there. And also Dylan, thanks so much for rejoining. I really appreciate it, Dylan Hughes. And thanks for stopping by as well. And all right, so getting into the questions here. So let me see, everyone's saying hello. And Theodore says, I'm at work, but my supervisor doesn't mind us watching you because he's a big fan too. That's awesome. Well, I hope you guys all enjoy it and helps to pass the time at work there a little bit. That sounds like you got a pretty cool boss. That's awesome. And thanks to everybody for being a fan. And Danny says, already seen some cool cars, another first-gen facelift Ranger, a Hyundai Elantra Coupe, a 2009 Toyota Yaris S, and a regular 1986 Buick Regal. Drove on Sunday, still on the hunt for my first car. Well, best of luck with the hunt and great spots. I haven't really seen anything notable here this week so far, unfortunately. And two, thanks for stopping by. It's been a while too. Thank you for the super chat. He says, I'm still here, not dead, just busy. Dad stuff. Totally understand. I'm right there with you, very busy with my own dad stuff too. So I completely understand here. And thanks so much though for stopping by. Hope you're doing well otherwise. And yeah, it's been a while since we've seen you here too. So thanks so much. Yeah, but I hope everything's okay. And let me see here. So Vishal says, what's up everyone? Pouring rain and under a severe thunderstorm warning in my area, but I'm here. Well, thanks for showing up with the craziness. Hope everything's good there, and keep an eye out for any of those alerts and stuff. Because yeah, we've had some of those crazy dumpings of rain here in the past couple of weeks as well, where it's like super quick, but it's like really intense rain. And it's definitely, I mean, maybe you guys remember it, but this is the first year where I've ever remembered these like super intense, super quick rains where it's 10 minutes of like minor flooding and then like nothing. It's like really extreme. I don't know. For me, it's just something I haven't seen before, at least around here in Pittsburgh. Let me see. So Vishal says his spots so far were a 2-door Toyota Echo and an Infiniti i35. Nice. That's a pretty cool spot. I saw I can't remember what. It might be an i35. I did see it was an older Infiniti, but I feel like it was something. Is there an i20 or something? It was one of the bigger sedans from like the early to mid 2000s. I forgot all the names of all those things that Infiniti did. And let me see here. Trent Car Guy said they saw a Huracan earlier today, so that was interesting. Nice. And Ian says, let's nerd out to cars, boys. Yep, that's what it's all about here. Thanks for stopping by. And two, also thanks for being a member for 37 months now. I really appreciate one of the OG supporters here. He says, I think it's time we we X the basement lore. Matt, maybe put up a poll. Yeah, I mean, as far as whether we keep it going, or I think too, you had also mentioned you had like another rhyme or something, or something short that you wanted to share in a live stream in the past. So let me know what you want to do here. Always happy for a little bit of basement lore, but also want to make sure we answer everyone's questions too. But yeah, feel free. Put out whatever you want there too, and we'll get to it here as well. Let me see. So Vishal says there's a Gen 1 Audi R8 V10 that cruises around my area fairly often as well. That's always a good sound, that Lamborghini V10. And Wheatman says good evening and hope all is staying cool this summer. Yeah, staying okay over here. Hope you guys are not getting too hot wherever you live as well. But thankfully, we had a little bit of a heat wave a few weeks back where it was like 90 something. But since then, it's been actually pretty nice and fairly mild. And okay, Basis says happy Monday number 3, everyone. Right, we're halfway through, right? It's the hump day live stream here. And let me see. All Mondays all the time. And let me see. Lancelot says I used to work retail. Every single day was Monday. I can understand that, I'm sure. Yeah, there's sometimes. I mean, for me, it was like Saturdays were like the Mondays sometimes because it was like Saturdays were so busy at the car dealerships when I used to be a detailer and everyone frantically buying cars and having to rush. So I guess it depends on which segment of retail. And Luke says it's been a busy work week for me. I've driven 2,300 miles since Sunday. That's crazy. Wow. Well, hopefully, yeah, you got some good loads that are paying well there, Luke. And yeah, well, stay safe out there, but that's awesome. It definitely far and away beats any records that I have ever had as far as mileage in a week. That's crazy. And it's only Wednesday. So that's nuts. Let me see. Okay, Basis says I'm going to open a restaurant to rival TGI Fridays called OFI Monday. You can guess the words. Yep. I don't know if you guys have TGI Fridays around there, but they've all vanished from the Pittsburgh area. And I actually really liked going there. It was good food. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't like amazing or anything, but I really miss TGI Fridays. And let me see. So Luke is asking, does your daughter enjoy the different press cars and possible rides in the different cars, or is she not old enough to care about that yet? She actually does really enjoy it. Yeah, she is very much checking them out, and she enjoys riding in them. I don't put the car seat in all of them if it's a smaller vehicle. We usually just stick to Beth's car to drive. But if it's something that's family sized, then there's something that I do put the car seat in. We use it exclusively for the week for the most part. And yeah, she really enjoys it. She loves minivans because she always asks, are there TVs in it? Like a minivan with TVs or ATV is the top thing for her. So that's where her priorities lie currently. But she also enjoys like the colors, and she also likes the pickup trucks because I let her hop into the truck bed and she'll just like jump in the truck bed, and that's kind of fun. So that's those are like the two highlights for her: truck beds and TVs and minivans. So yeah, but eventually, she does also enjoy going fast from time to time as well. I don't go too fast with her or anything, but every once in a while she enjoys a little acceleration too. So, and she also did really enjoy when I had the Deborah X a while back with a manual, and she was enjoying watching me shift, and that was kind of something she's not used to seeing me do. So that was kind of fun for her too. And Decepticon says, yo, Matt Moran back in the house tonight. Thanks for stopping by, Decepticon. Hope you're doing well. And Chad says, finally got the Fusion fixed, just a throttle body and nothing else wrong. Not bad for 180,000 miles. Wow, I didn't know you had that many miles on it. That's awesome. And glad that it was something minor and nice and easy there. And Scott says, how can I gift memberships? Yeah, so I see Lancelot has that there. And Scott, it doesn't look like you're a member either. I don't know if maybe you need to be a member first in order to gift memberships, possibly. I'm not sure if that's required or not. But that might be the first step there. I'm not sure, but no pressure. Again, you can always, if you want to join in the conversation and get priority answering, you can also just do the super chats as well. There's a variety of amounts, but totally up to you. I mean, again, I'm doing a pretty good job so far keeping up with non-member comments too, so no pressure. Hopefully we can chat with everyone here tonight. But speaking of super chats, thank you so much too for another super chat. He says you didn't want to read it. Also, TGIF, let's remake Hooters and call it WCW. I mean, I think Hooters is still a thriving business from what I've seen. There's Yeah, I was having a discussion with Beth about Hooters the other night, and they are in fact still thriving out there. There's not really any in Pittsburgh, I don't think, but yeah, they seem to be doing well other places. But WCW could be certainly another competitor, I'm sure. There was also what, like Tilted Kilt was another thing of a similar variety. So I'm sure there's room for another competitor there. If you want to get into the restaurant business too, tangible businesses are probably a very good thing to get into in this age of AI. Like, people are still going to need to eat, and that's one of those things. I think a lot of us creative professionals and people that are most likely going to be replaced by AI in one form or another. You have, like, that's what I'm thinking about, like, for next steps for me. Like, what can I do that AI can't do? And AI can't cook food. And I mean, you have robots cook food someday, but like, those tangible things and people going places and having a place for people to actually physically go to, those are the types of things I think that are going to really be, the most important kind of businesses, and really some of the only businesses to survive, once creative stuff just completely goes, borderline extinct. I mean, there will always be some, but it's never going to be, even a fraction of, what it is now. But Chad says Hooters is in the Villages now. I'm not sure where the Villages is, but I see Two says Basement Wings Incorporated. There you go. That's a good name. Thank you, Two and Chad, for the super chats. Basement Wings. I like it. I'll even let you put up a picture of my dumb face if you want. You can have me, as long as it's not too trashy. I don't want to associate the brand with that, but I would totally be down for a place called Basement Wings. Let me know how I can get involved in the business there. He says, never mind, that's illegal. Maybe if you actually have the same basement conditions you describe in your basement lore there, then yeah, probably wouldn't be a very desirable place for people to eat. And Austin, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, hey Matt, now I'm considering Alfa Romeo Giulia. I'm waiting on a health diagnosis, but I want to echo your recent sentiments about seizing every day. Well, I hope everything works out for you, Austin. Yeah, like I said, I've had some scares as well in the past, and thankfully everything's been okay. I think, usually, a lot of that stuff, there can be some real, questionable symptoms, and then turns out that, maybe it's explained by something that's not, super scary. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for you, Austin. I'm wishing you all the best, sending good vibes, and yeah, keep us posted here if you want, but you got our support for sure. As far as Giulia, they're fantastic. As you are probably well aware from all my videos and stuff, Giulia is a great buy on the used market. Still so cheap for so much car. And if you find one that's, been taken care of well, good maintenance records, I think that it's a very good buy. And, they seem to hold up actually really well, for the most part, especially as long as you don't go first model year and stuff. So, yeah, I love Giulia, and best of luck to you as well. And thank you again for the super chat too. And let me see here. Where were we? So Bird Dog says his spotted leak was a Lucid. Very nice. Those are always cool to see. Zachary says Straight Pipes Yuri getting an 06 GTO makes me want to buy a Chevy SS and rebadge it as a Holden Commodore. Yeah, well, I thought Yuri, did he get the Camaro or whatever recently? The new or the old IROC Z kind of thing. I haven't watched the video yet, but yeah, Yuri's awesome. I was actually just chatting with him last night on Instagram. But yeah, I think it'd be awesome to do an SS and rebadge it as a Commodore. That's a very common thing, and I think it's really, really cool to kind of have something that stands out, especially with SSs. It just, I think the grill for the Holden version is a little cooler, and it just makes the car seem a little more interesting than just people thinking like, oh wow, that's an Impala, I guess, and just completely being underappreciated. So Holden kind of gives you some extra intrigue there. But yeah, and I don't remember when they first started making the Utes, but I hope that we're getting somewhat close to those being old enough to import over here. because I'd love to see some Utes popping up at some point. And let me see here. Luke also says, I've seen an abundance of Camrys the last week of my travels. The sedan is back, it seems. Yeah, I hope so. It seems like, yeah, Camry's selling very well, and I hope that it seems like sedans have certainly stopped their decline. I think they've gotten about as low as they're going to get, and I think now we're seeing the strong supporters that are like sedan or nothing. And I'm hoping that, there's maybe even opportunity for a little bit of growth again with more impressive new stuff like the new Camry, with the Accord being super comfortable and, that getting a refresh here, I think here for 2026 as well, hopefully help boost the numbers. Sonata's phenomenal. K5, got a nice little change up as well. I think there's, it's a really strong segment, even though, a lot of people like, Chevy Malibu's leaving, Subaru Legacy's leaving. I think there's still just the ones that remain are, really some of the best ones anyway. So I'm hoping they continue to, sell well. And T-Soul Beats, thanks for stopping by as well. And let me see. Danny says the smaller Infiniti was the G20. Okay. I don't know if it was the G20 because I think that was like the really small one. This was the larger ones. I think it was maybe the i35. I don't know. But I'll have to look it up later. T-Soul Beats says, curious if you have any thoughts on an RC350 all-wheel drive coupe used at the right price. I'm aware it's not the sportiest option, but how about for someone who's only ever owned / driven old and slow SUVs? For that, for you, I think that would be a really fun choice. And I like RC350. I don't know if you saw, I just did a review on one. I revisited RC, I think last year it was. And I love RC. I think RC is great, even the regular 350 version. It's kind of a perfect combo in a lot of ways because you have, Lexus reliability. You have a V6, which is very desirable, as we're seeing everything downsize. I mean, it's a great V6. It runs forever. I mean, that thing will literally probably give you no problems, knock on wood, no guarantees, but should be, really, I'd say arguably the most reliable coupe you can buy possibly. I mean, it's, that's a car I could put, 350,000 miles on it without batting an eye. Like, I mean, it's, it's actually a nice driving car. Yeah, sure. It's not going to be as dynamic as, any of the crazier stuff. And there's also the RCF if you want something crazy with that same Lexus reliability. But I think RC350 is a great daily driver, and having the all-wheel drive is obviously, very nice. I've always enjoyed RC. And I think if you are someone who, wants a coupe and you need all-weather capability, that would be pretty high up on my list. And I think the Lexus has always hold their value pretty well, but it seems like they have kind of depreciated nicely. So they are getting nice and affordable. And that's the kind of sweet spot where it's depreciated, enough, but you also can buy a high mileage one and probably not worry about it as long as, again, it's been maintained well. I would have no problems buying a 100,000 mile RC350 with consistent oil change records. I'd buy that and have full confidence I could drive that for another 10 years easy, so I think it's a really great buy, and, definitely test drive it if you can, see what you think about it for yourself, see how you fit and how everything feels to you. But I think it's a great choice. And let me see here. YH, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, why do the racers try me the most? I am not wasting my premium gas on your Honda lawnmower. And my stand goes brute. I'm glad you're enjoying the muscle there. And I mean, the thing with some of these things, I mean, there's some really impressive stuff these days. I don't recall off the top of my head as far as like Civic Type R versus Mustang, as far as, how far behind Civic Type R would be. But some of these things are putting out some real good power, and especially like if you're talking like some of these modded WRXs, this newest gen, doing almost 500 horsepower. I mean they could be a force to be reckoned with. So don't get too confident there. But obviously the great thing about those, whenever you are potentially racing people, is with that Coyote motor, I mean it just keeps pulling and pulling and pulling. So I mean you can have a just real tall, so there's just less shifting there because of just the amount of power band you have to work through. So definitely good for especially roll races and stuff like that, but stay safe out there. And yeah, I don't condone street racing, I will say. Although I was guilty of it in the past as well when I was younger. But it's I always recommend people keep it on the track, and that way you don't have to worry and you can go crazy too. And Vishal, thanks so much for being a member for 15 months now. I really appreciate that. He says, thoughts on Ford's 0 down 0% financing incentive they came out with today? Only seems to apply to certain models, not on everything. Yeah, I did just see that because Mach-E is one of the things we were shopping around for and getting quotes on, and so yeah, it's interesting, because you're right, a lot of the things don't qualify. There are still pretty good rates on the things that don't qualify for 0 down. Like I was seeing that some other stuff, it's like 0.72% in financing or something instead. So it seems like they're heavily financing, I guess financing the financing and, incentivizing that instead. But whenever I look at, I didn't get a quote on a Mach-E today, but based off the quotes that I was getting for Mach-E's with the employee pricing they were doing up until yesterday, I don't know if, like, for Mach-E, for example, if it's going to really be that much better. I think for, I think it's kind of an interesting play by Ford because, this clearly is prioritizing the gas stuff because most people are not going to be buying any EV because, one, they depreciate super fast, and two, you don't get the tax credit, the full 7,500 at least, unless you lease. So it seems like this is targeted at liquidating their gas inventory, which I guess is, again, something that they're trying to just turn out as many, partially because I think they want to retain the F-150 sales crown this year, and they know that, again, when they have to finally up pricing on some of this stuff, it's going to hurt their sales in a big way. And so I think Ford is just kind of doing the smash and grab of let's churn out every possible sale we can like it's the end of the year, because in a way it kind of is from a sales standpoint, probably, of this is holding off these tariffs as long as they possibly can before they finally have to then say, okay, now everything's $5,000 more expensive and your sales go down the toilet, like we see with WRX. They raise the price on that, $3 or $4 grand, and there also is very little dealer supply, probably because they don't want to import them in and pay the tariffs. But, WRX sales have cratered. I can't remember I think they're down 70% or something now this year. It's bad. And that's going to be the case for anyone that's importing anything in. Ford obviously builds a lot here, but they do still import stuff. So we'll see how it plays out. But it's an interesting tactic, because a lot of people, are still maybe on the sidelines with financing a little bit. And so doing 0%, and it's long terms. Like, again, like the 0.72 that I think I saw was for 72 months. You never get 72 months that low. Even some of the other companies that have done like the 0% financing, in the past year or so here, it's always been like 48 months or something like that. And I believe even with the Ford thing, it is, I think 0% is only up till 48 months. I think beyond that, you do start to get a little bit of interest, but it's still, again, so cheap that it's an excellent deal. And this is why I've told everyone, if you need to buy a car, or if you think your car will not last you until 2029, get a car, ASAP, and especially if you want an EV, get it before September 30th. But, it doesn't seem like he's backing down on any of these tariffs. Just talking this week about Europe and Japan, and, so, the Japanese and the South Korea thing, if they don't work that out, 25%. So, you're going to see, Hyundai's kind of held their pricing, for a while here. I'm not sure. I haven't seen I don't think they've upped their prices yet, even though they were only guaranteeing pricing until the end of June, I think. But I think it's still the same for them. But yeah, I think Ford is kind of playing it right. I just think Ford should do more of an emphasis on liquidating the EVs, literally liquidate them so that there is almost nothing left on lots after September 30th. If I was a car company running the show right now and I had EVs to get rid of, that's what I'd be doing. Get rid of everything by September 30th, like it's the end of the year, and have a few leftovers for people that wreck them and need to replace it and really want the same thing or something. But aside from that, you don't want to have EVs on your lot after September 30th because that tax credit goes away and it immediately gets $7,500 more expensive. And it's not, no one's going to want to go for that. No one wants to feel like they are getting a bad deal knowing what they could have gotten, a month or two ago. So, so it's a good thing for Ford there, and I think that does last until September for that incentive. But I think they need to do something more for the EVs so they don't get caught with a bunch of EV stock they can't get rid of in the fall. So we'll see what happens. But it's very interesting. They're making moves a lot more than a lot of others though are, and a lot of others are just continuing to try and pretend like it's business as normal, and it's like it's not business as normal. It's not going to be that way. Like the sooner that they just face the music and just do something drastic, the better off they're going to be on their balance sheet for the end of the year. So we'll see what happens, but crazy times. And thanks, Michelle, for being a member again for 15 months now. Let me see here. Don't want to get too far behind on comments here. Jazz says the basement stuff is silly and corny in his opinion. Okay, well, Sue can take notes here and we can do our little poll that way, I suppose. Luke also says Infiniti M was a bigger sedan in the early 2000s. Okay, yeah, the M is a bigger one. There was the J too. Wasn't there a J, or was that in the 90s when they did the J series for Infiniti? I can't remember. It's all just a blur to me. Cam, thanks for stopping by. And let me see. Lancewell says it got to 103 degrees here today. Is summer over yet, man? Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but the older I get, the more everything seems to fly by. It's like we're already close to being halfway through the summer, kind of. If you consider the end of August to kind of be the end in a way, so it is flying by for me, I think, but I'm always just insanely busy, so maybe time passes a little faster for me than people that have a healthier work-life balance than I do. But let me see. Lance Smith also says no TGI Fridays here either, only Applebee's. Okay, so yeah, maybe it's everywhere where they've kind of fallen off and not just Pittsburgh. I hope that TGI Fridays is doing well somewhere. And Nicholas says, I saw a teal Triumph TR3 in my town, and I saw it on Bring a Trailer a few days later since I have alerts for TR3s enabled. Pretty incredible coincidence. That's wild. And very cool. So are you in the market for one? That'd be a fun car to pick up at some point. Obviously, you have to know how to work on cars with something like that, but that'd be really cool. And Danny says, I saw Facebook Marketplace had a Chevy Cavalier four-door sedan for $1,800 with 62,000 miles. 10 minutes down the road from me. Was too scared to ask my parents about it. They were weary about an online car purchase. Well, I mean, you can always check it out in person, obviously, make sure that everything's good before you go through with it. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like really low miles, so unless the car is in rough shape. Otherwise, if it's been sitting outside or something, but I mean, that doesn't sound like a terrible price for a car that hopefully still has a decent amount of life left in it if it's been taken care of. Interesting. I'm curious to see how it goes for you, Danny, if you decide to check it out. Bobby says just bought a 25 RS3 so fast, and that engine's amazing. Well, congrats. That's awesome. And hang on to that thing because, man, those are going to be so collectible, I think, in the future. And yeah, that's an incredible purchase. So congrats to you. Congrats on achieving that and being able to get that. That is awesome. And yeah, I absolutely adore those things. I'm hoping to get the refresh version here. I think 25 was the refresh. It's interesting. They're already showing up at dealers. They're so slow with getting some of these press fleet vehicles out into the fleet. But I'm hoping to review a 25 at some point because I'm always looking for an opportunity to review an RS3. So hopefully Audi sends one soon. I just did the S3 not so long ago. I'll actually have the regular A3 here this coming week. And then, yeah, I'm just waiting on the RS3 version after that. But I hope you enjoy to the max. And yeah, congrats again. Trent Car Guy says, I haven't seen an Applebee's or a TGI Fridays out here. Occasionally a Buffalo Wild Wings. We have several Korean barbecues out here for some reason. Nice. Well, that's fun. Yeah, don't have a ton of that in Pittsburgh, but we do have Buffalo Wild Wings, and I'm not sponsored, but for anyone that's looking to save money, I think they're still doing it. They were doing like an all-you-can-eat appetizers thing, and I can't remember how much it was. You can check on their site. I really wish I was getting paid for this. We just went with some friends to Buffalo Wild Wings a week or two, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it was like literally all you can eat appetizers for 4 people for, I don't know, it was like $10 or something. It was like stupid cheap. And it's like, it's actually kind of, if you don't mind feeding your kids junk, it's a good way to feed the family. Just giving them a bunch of appetizers because it's actually all you can eat for like $10. It's pretty wild. So stop in your Buffalo Wild Wings today. No. But anyway, let me see here. Luke says, I go to Hilton Head Island for vacation next week. That's awesome. And he says, looking forward to that after this work week. I have another 800 miles before I'm done for the week. That's crazy. Well, yeah, you will hopefully get some nice rest and relaxation, but man, another 800 to go is pretty crazy. But I guess that's the life of especially long haul truckers, right? That's I'm sure that's how they rack up these millions of miles on their 18 wheelers. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the vacation. That's awesome. And Cam Jam says, looked more into the Camrys after your suggestion from Sunday. Did you find the 8-speed sluggish or annoying due to its long gearing? Heard the hybrid was maybe the way to go. Hybrid is definitely more responsive, obviously. You can't beat the electrification zap, but the 8-speed was not annoying to me. I think it was actually fine. It's no ZF 8-speed. It's not super fast, but I guess it depends on how much you manually shift and stuff. But as far as like responding just to throttle inputs, totally fine. I don't recall it annoying me at all during the week. You can go back and watch, my reviews if you haven't already. But I don't think I had any issues, especially TRD version was nice and responsive. And yeah, I think Camry's pretty well done. So, but yeah, hybrid's great too. I mean, I had a ton of fun with the hybrid. It's just less power, But if you're fine with that, it's really nice for the new hybrid versions. And let me see. So Trend Car Guy says we do have a couple of Hooters out here. Well, yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I feel like they are fairly widespread, but I don't see them too often, honestly, myself. But Michelle says, my brother got his license today. Well, congrats to him. That's awesome. He says, the Passat is his car now. Cool that we both learned to drive and pass our road test in it. That car really holds a lot of memories and milestones. That's awesome to keep a car in the family. I hope it treats your brother well and that he enjoys it for a long time, too. That's awesome. And Two's saying, wouldn't Austin rather get a swaggier? Yeah, I know there's been a lot of headlines about Jag sales not being great, recently, and there might be some deals to be had on Jags out there, especially new ones. But yeah, I haven't seen any actual good deals being advertised by them, but maybe if a dealer is desperate, since it sounds like sales are really slow, maybe I can you can get some good deals on a new lease or something like that. And Two says, yeah, baby, groovy. And Dylan says, one of my neighbors has a Julia. He's had a few parts with 2-month waiting times. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but something to bear in mind. Oh, thanks for the heads up there for Austin. Yeah, I hadn't heard about a part shortage there for Julia. That's interesting. Yeah, so hopefully parts are still plentiful. That's kind of surprising because, especially if they're shipping from overseas, Julias are everywhere in Europe. Especially when I was in Italy last year. Tons of Julias. So there's got to be a decent amount of supply, at least overseas. Maybe there's a hold up as far as why they're not coming to the States quicker. Maybe tariffs. I don't know. That's interesting though. And Chad says, one of my crew was looking at a used Charger. After talking to him, he ended up getting a new Camry for almost the same price and it'll last forever. Yeah, that's definitely the better long-term play for sure. Obviously, it doesn't have the attitude of Charger, but Camry's a good buy. It's always it's always the safe recommendation. People always ask me, for recommendations, family, friends, whatever. It's like I'm usually not going to get burned by recommending a Toyota to anybody. They're usually they'll last forever and usually pretty solid vehicles. And let me see. Zachary says, I had an 09 Acura TSX that I put a European Honda Accord grill on just for fun. Nice. That's cool. I'm sure that probably confused quite a few people. And I like that, especially with that one, you downgraded the badging. which is the exact opposite of everyone who slaps M badges on their base model BMWs. So that's awesome. And I commend you. That's yeah, that totally is like my personality. I do the same way. Zachary, that's funny. And let me see. Cam says, saw an A6 All-Road today with a ski box on the top. Nice. Definitely a dream family car other than the RS6. And A6 All-Roads are really cool. That's just a car, where I would definitely want to have an extended warranty on it, because at least the old ones, whenever the old ones would come into the dealership that I used to work at, it was an Audi dealer, so there was a lot of, servicing going on, but like the air suspension of those things always going bad, glitches left and right, alarms going off for no reason, just phantom battery drains, all those kind of quirky, European things. So definitely, if you ever go for an all-road or any Audi, I'd recommend an extended warranty if you're going to keep it, beyond the regular warranty period there. But they are cool, and I still desperately want an RS6, even with all the potential electrical gremlins and stuff. That car is amazing. And Jay says, hey, Matt, first time for a Wednesday live for me. Well, thanks for stopping by, Jay. I appreciate it. He says, hopefully all has been well. Hope everything's been well with you too. Just hanging in here, trying to, turn the channel around and, dealing with just all the headwinds of, YouTube these days. Keep on taking it one day at a time. And let me see here. T-Soul Beats says, thanks so much. I've been watching your videos for almost a decade, so I can definitely trust your input, and it's highly appreciated. Well, thank you so much for watching for 10 years. I really appreciate that. And I'm always so grateful for everyone that's been watching so long, especially. It's always a very humbling thing to hear. So thank you so much. And if you have any other follow-up questions or anything, feel free to send me messages here or on any of the social that I'm on. More than happy to always help anyone find a car they love and give anyone advice if they're looking for it. Let me see. I see Jay's talking about the JDM stuff once again. Man, the crap talking here with the domestic versus import. It reminds me of the good old days. And Joel, thanks for stopping by. It's been a minute, Matt. Hope you and the family are doing well. What's the update on Slate? Only hope left under 30 grand. Well, yeah, thanks for stopping by, Joel. Slate, I don't really have too much of an update. I think it's kind of just, the only new things is obviously tax credits going away here September 30th. So Slate will not be able to actually be under 30 anymore, but now it'll be probably, because I think I guess they were saying, what was the initial thing they were saying, under or around 20 or 25, maybe it could still be under 30, we'll see. But as far as they announced that they're going to be building it in the one factory in the Midwest they just bought, otherwise I don't know as far as like any kind of release date really or any other details. I think it's going to be one of those things where, it made a splash and it's going to be a while. Hopefully it doesn't take as long as like Cybertruck did and all these other things, and hopefully it does actually come to fruition. But I don't have any other updates, unfortunately. I'm excited for Slate still. I'm even without a tax credit, I think it's going to, really, I kind of talked about this on the Sunday live stream too, but I think it's really going to tap into just a market of people that truly want something bare bones, and just the adjustability and customization of, do you want to put a cab on the back and throw seats in it and make it an SUV? Do you want to, have it be crazy? Do you want to have it be, boring? You can do whatever you want because it's a blank slate. And I think that that's going to really tap into something that hasn't been tapped into in a long time in the car industry. And I think it's going to really kind of almost be a Tesla kind of moment where it turns non-car people into car people in a way where it's like, okay, it's cheap, so that has them interested, and they're like, oh wait, it might be kind of fun to customize a car. It might be fun to kind of get into my vehicle instead of it just being an appliance that gets me from point A to point B. And I think that the last time we saw that was, again, when Tesla first landed on the scene, and you had a bunch of people who, were just coming out of BMW 3 Series and never really paid much attention to cars or whatever. And then they're like, oh, wow, I'm getting into this. This is a really cool thing. And there's a community. And, and it was this whole like, this community. And I think I don't think that's really happened since Tesla of, this thing of getting non-car people into cars in a way. And so I think Slate has the potential to do that. And I'm excited for that component as well. And let me see. So, let me see. Cali, Miami says Super Ducks fan. Thanks for stopping by. And let me see. Um, skipping right over the trash talk here. Jay Potter says, love your channel. Traded in my 2018 Mustang GT for a 2023 Civic Si due to a new baby. Well, congrats on the baby. That's awesome. Your review helped me make my decision when buying. Well, I'm so happy it helped you. That's awesome. That's why I do these videos. I'm so happy that that helped you out. That always feels good to hear. So thank you so much for sharing that. I hope everything goes great with the new car. Hope everything goes great with the new baby. And welcome to fatherhood if it's your first go around. So that's awesome though. And yeah, Civic Si is great. I love them. So it'll be a lot of fun. And let me see. Chad says, I saw a very clean Magnum RT in my neighborhood. Wish they'd bring those back. Me too. It'd be so cool. And maybe we will see something like that come back since, it sounds like wagons are starting to catch on a little bit more with M5 Touring, and BMW feeling very encouraged about wagons. And obviously Audi, I think, still pretty happy with how their wagons have performed. I think Mercedes is, working on a new E-Class wagon for the States here, hopefully as well. We already have the E450 all-terrain or whatever it's called, but I'm hoping we get a performance one here soon too. And Zachary says, I can't remember, but how was the F-150 Lightning? It's been a long time since I've watched that review. I actually really like Lightning. I think Lightning is obviously it's a really good choice for someone who wants all the perks of an electric truck but doesn't want the polarization of Cybertruck, and doesn't want just the higher price tag and the more extreme looks of even Silverado EV and Sierra EV. F-150 Lightning very much looks like a normal F-150 for the most part. And so for people that especially are just, again, trying to take that step to, okay, I'm ready for an EV, but I want it to feel like my current F-150. Like, I think that's the beauty of Lightning. And it performed great. Obviously, it's plenty quick. Charging's average, certainly could be improved, but not terrible or anything. And the Lightning I had was a base one too. It was like cloth seats and everything else. So it comes down to the deals and stuff. But I don't know if you're interested in any of them, Zachary, or if you're just curious, but anyone who's open to Lightning, they are dirt cheap leases right now. I think they were actually leasing cheaper than Mach-E's at one point. And it's like, there was a lot of hype whenever they were first announced they're going to start at like 40 grand. And then of course there was more expensive ones that kind of, soured that hype. But like there's people getting Lightning leases for under $500 a month. And not with like a huge amount down or anything, like very minimal amounts down. Like, there's some deals to be had on Lightnings. And the cool thing about Lightning is the fact that it can be a battery backup for your house too. So, you have to have your house wired for that, and that's not cheap. But if you're someone who, wants to have a battery backup, you can have the Lightning be a rolling battery backup. And if you know anything about like having solar panels on your roof or anything, the batteries are very expensive. And some people just do solar without the battery backup because it's, just so cost prohibitive. But like you could drive your battery backup with the Lightning. And there's others that do that as well. But that's, to have something that's that cheap and can also function as a generator for your house if you're wired up for it is really a cool concept in my opinion, especially with more extreme weather these days and more power outages. It's something I honestly love. If a Lightning fit in our garage, I'd honestly contemplate putting a cab on the back. I hate driving trucks, but it's like a very tempting idea of like we could have a battery backup and also drive it. Even if it's nothing more than that. That's impressive on its own for $500 a month or less. But yeah, they seem to be very good deals. Luke says the days are long, the years are short. Yeah, and Immutable Dude says buy the Triumph. Yeah, I agree. I think that it could be a fun journey for them. And YH says Buffalo Wild Wings actually has good wings. Yeah, I actually always loved Buffalo Wild Wings. I thought they were really good. Around here, we also had Quaker Steak and Lube, which I think had slightly better wings, but they're so few and far between anymore. I haven't had those wings in, it's probably been at least 10 years, unfortunately. But yeah, Buffalo Wild Wings is good stuff. And Cam Jam says, yeah, once BMW got rid of mini corn dogs, or once Buffalo Wild Wings, sorry, got rid of mini corn dogs, I was out. Well, I can understand. Mini corn dogs are really fun. And Ben says, hey, Matt, nice review on the Navigator. Do you think Lincoln made the right call in dropping the lower trims? Well, I'm glad you liked it. Thanks for watching it. I don't know. I would have to look at the sales data of, what the split was previously. I'm sure it must have been the right choice for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have, hurt sales. So it must have been compelling enough. But I have a hard time believing that everyone wanted loaded Navigators because, I feel like, especially these days, with ballooning prices, you got to have that entry price point to at least get people in the door and maybe get them hooked, and then they buy the expensive one or something. But it's just an instant turnoff when you tell people, to even start in a Navigator, you're over six figures. Like that's just, there's also it's a very real thing of mental hurdles. And this is why, $499 is more desirable than a $5 whatever. There is something to be said for even them pricing it at $99,999 or whatever. And, it makes it harder on them. Maybe they're confident and they think they got a fantastic product and it doesn't matter, and everyone's going to just open their wallets and write blank checks for whatever. And there's certainly going to be some people like that, but when we're talking about high volume, if they want to take Escalade's lunch, I don't think you're going to do it by starting at $100,000 when Escalade, like I said in the video, is starting in the 80s. So again, it's hard to say without having the data. It's hard to be an armchair, product planner with that. But if it were me running the show, knowing the little bit that I do know about that market and what I observe out elsewhere, I think there are people that want a Navigator brand new that don't want to spend $100,000 on it. And, there's also some people don't need all these things. Again, the 26-way perfect position seats. A lot of people don't care. They don't mess with that stuff. They just want a comfy, soft seat. Like you could have it be a 4-way seat and they'd be fine with that. That could, get you under $100,000 alone just by nixing the super expensive seat. Does everyone need massage in their luxury giant thing? No. Does everyone need, a 26 speaker stereo? No. Especially when you have to keep in mind, especially Navigators, they do a ton of fleet sales. And having the executive rear seat thing is certainly something that's appealing for high-end versions of that. But I can't tell you the amount of Escalades and Navigators I've ridden in, just even doing these press launches. Sometimes if they're not picking you up in one of their vehicles for their brand, a lot of times they just, hire some, black car service that shows up, and they're always in base Escalades and base Navigators. And that is a large amount of vehicles that, it shouldn't be overlooked. And, chauffeurs obviously need pampering as well, but for a fleet operator, you don't care. You want to have the basic thing possible because it's the chauffeur who's sitting up front. The chauffeur doesn't need massaging seats. The chauffeur doesn't need 26 perfect, way seats and all this stuff. So I think, they should at least do a fleet special Navigator or something like that, just to say, hey, look, we're showing up in a luxury car for your fancy car service or whatever. But it's a thing to go to the airport in or whatever, have it be, leather and not much else, and so I think there's certainly some missed opportunity there. How much, I don't know. And I'm sure, the number crunchers figured it out, but yeah, I do think it might have, been a mistake here. And I guess we'll see how sales play out as far as Escalade. And I think also it's a huge opportunity for Grand Wagoneer. And we'll see if Grand Wagoneer finally can kind of make a dent a little bit more as a result of, Navigator going up market. We'll see. And YH, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, don't you think a supercharged Dark Horse is a great deal? Hard to get that much horsepower and power for that money from other manufacturers. Well, supercharger, I guess you're talking I don't recall how much Ford charges for that, because that's not really factory, that's still dealer installed and, has a slightly shorter warranty. But yeah, if you're after, just a ton of horsepower, okay, Roush is 10 grand. Okay. So Dark Horse, you can get Dark Horse already to 70, right? And then 80 if you're saying, for the Roush Charger on top there. Yeah, for 80 grand, I mean, what is it? 700 horsepower or something, I think still, right? So I mean, that's a lot of power. But if we're talking about deals, there's nothing about a dark horse that's going to, radically transform that experience versus getting I I mean, even you can go for a 2018 or newer S550, throw a supercharger on that, and you have the same 700 horsepower, same basic thing as far as that much power, and you can do that. Even if you're doing the Roush brand new supercharger for 10 grand, I think you could probably find cheaper ones. But you slap that on a $30,000 Mustang GT, you're at 40 grand versus 80. You have half the cost there, same horsepower. Now, in the new market, obviously right now, yes, we have no Hellcat, we have no GT500, and we have nothing from Chevy, no ZL1 or anything. So if you're trying to have that same kind of thing we had in the 2010s, then yeah, that's kind of the way to go. I think also, though, there are actually a lot of Charger and Challenger Hellcats still sitting around on lots, believe it or not. So, and because of that, there's probably some deals to be had on those. So if you do want actually factory supercharger, that could probably be the better deal. I'm pretty sure most of those are going for under 70 or 80 grand. So that could be another thing. Obviously, again, not the new interior, not the sharp new styling of the 2024 Mustangs. But to me, there's if that's truly what you're after, I mean, this is why the aftermarket exists, because everyone's doing 700 horsepower already, and they've been doing it for the past 10 years on their S550s, with that same supercharger. But and YH also says just don't trust Dodge reliability. I have heard the superchargers can sometimes, need replacement after a while. Also, that comes down to how they're kept, same kind of thing. Not the stereotype, but Dodge Charger and Challenger buyers, there's probably some that do, drive them a little harder than, than some of the others maybe. So there might be some of that at play as well. But also, I've seen some supercharged stuff go the distance as well. And some of these Hellcats that are over 100,000 miles and all that. It also comes down to how long you plan to keep it for. If you're going to be outside of the warranty period, then sure, that could be a little bit nerve wracking. But I also don't trust Roush reliability. I mean, I've driven some of the Roush stuff. I hope they tuned them better now than they did before, but it was very inconsistent with how it was delivering boost with the Roush stuff that I drove. I actually didn't like the polish. I don't think they tuned it super well, to be completely honest. Again, this was years ago. I'm sure there's been changes since, but I mean, it was fast and it was fun, but was it factory? Was it GT 500 levels of polish? No, not even close. So it's definitely, you're doing it on a budget and it shows, it's not going to be quite as good there. It says the Roush has the nice wine. Yeah, the Roush does have the wine. That is certainly nice, as does the Dodge. But yeah, I know the GT500 doesn't have that. And that was one of my biggest disappointments with that car, was no supercharger wine really to speak of. But GT500 is an animal. And I don't know how much they're going for on the used market, but I'm guessing it's less than a supercharged dark horse. I could be wrong. Maybe they've really held their value well. But I have to think you can get a GT500 for less than 70 grand these days. And personally, if it were me, I mean, again, I guess it depends on if you want manual or not, but like GT500 is a beast. I absolutely love it. And I would, if I wanted a ton of power, it would definitely, I think, be my choice. As much as I love Camaro Z01 and I love the Hellcats and stuff, I think I probably would end up in a GT500 between the three. And I see YH also says, funny thing is the GT350R is actually going for more than a GT500 these days. Wow, that's crazy. Well, then, yeah, if it's like that cheap, I mean, I know GT350Rs are probably, going for some pretty big money, but if it's actually a good deal for a GT500, then that would absolutely be where I would spend my money. Because the other thing to keep in mind with doing stuff like the Roush supercharger is you don't really get that money back, versus a GT500 has status. And, versus you're driving a modified dark horse. And even if it's a dark horse, it's a little bit more special, and it does hold its value better. Just like, we saw with Bullet and Mach 1, they do hold their value better, but it's not the kind of legendary status of the Shelby stuff. And, and especially if it's a car you're going to keep for a long time, Shelby's are always the biggest earners at auction, and all that. So, I mean, um, I think it's a better investment, and all that for the GT500. And, it's something that everyone universally understands. They know they can count on it being X amount of quality versus, a supercharger that either someone else put on or a dealer put on. Did the dealer do it well? And how's the tune? How has it been treated? There's all these other things that go into it. How does it be handled with insurance? Because you have to actually insure it for more, because otherwise you wreck the car and total it. It's a regular Mustang to them. They're not going to give you the 10 grand for the Roush charge or whatever, unless you have an actual Roush version, I suppose. But, that's the thing with aftermarket stuff. You don't get that money back if something ever happens to it, versus GT500 is insured because it's GT500 and you get that. So, that's the other thing. Why? I mean, I've gotten into mods less and less these days. It's just not really my scene as much anymore, but I just like the polish of OEM quality stuff. And so, I mean, Roush is very close to that, but it doesn't beat GT500 in my opinion. So I just probably go for that, honestly. But yeah, great discussion though. I'm still looking at GT400 pricing now because I'm curious how cheap they've gotten. But YH also says, yeah, I'm gonna ECU tune cold air intake. A GT can't handle superchargers. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that supercharge the GTs, and I mean, I've reviewed a few of them. They're a ton of fun, and you just have to do the supporting mods, to have it all kind of put the power down well and all that. But yeah, they're a ton of fun with a supercharger for sure. I drove a supercharged Bullet even. I did a video on that. That was a ton of fun. There's some fun supercharged Mustangs out there. And let me see here. Where were we? The truck and car guy says, I just remembered that a Caliber SRT4 showed up at my work the other day. Can't remember the last time I saw one of those. Yeah, those things, I've only driven one once, and it was for like 20 minutes, and it was the most torque steer I've ever experienced in my life. Like, hands down, far and away, like nothing even comes close to the amount of torque steer. That thing was a mess. It was just all over the place. I mean, it's fun and it's character, but man, I was driving it on a canyon road, and that is not the place you want to be for torque steer. So it was a wild ride. Man, Caliber has got to be close to the lowest point that Dodge ever got, I think. Because I think there's charm with Neon. I think Dart was actually really good, but Caliber was just so bad. I mean, bad reliability, bad idea, bad styling, bad execution, just failing grades all the way down the line. It's I'd like to review a Caliber just for giggles. That'd be a great April Fool's review, and just roast it the whole time. Because, and also, I don't know about you guys, but I don't ever see a Caliber on the road anymore. Never. It's been years since I've seen a Caliber, and they're not that old. They should have lasted, but clearly they did not, and that tells you something about the quality there. But I also don't see darts very often either, though, and I have actually seen some of them go the distance. So I don't know why some of that stuff seems like it just evaporated too, because I feel like dart actually was better, but I don't know, maybe they just all get totaled out easier because they're depreciating faster or something. I don't know. But that's cool. You saw one though. And Cam says, I'm also going on vacation next week. Well, I hope you have a good vacation as well, Cam. And yeah, congrats on that. And Lewis says, are you going to go check out the new Honda Prelude? Yeah, absolutely. Once it, I think they're saying towards the end of this year, it's going to come out. I'm looking forward to reviewing it and checking it out. Honda doesn't invite me on stuff typically. I don't know why, but so I probably won't be the first person to have a video on the Prelude. But hopefully at some point next year I get my hands on it and do a review of it, because I'm very excited for it, even if it's gonna probably be underwhelming for most people. I think for what it is, a coupe Civic, essentially, I think it's gonna be great, and I'm happy to see a coupe come back, no matter how terrible it is. And the Indian Techie says, Matt, how's everything with you? Wanted to give you an update. The Prelude is still with me and will be getting refreshed soon. I am now daily driving an 07 TL Type S. That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for stopping by, and thanks for the update there. And Yeah, I'm glad that the Prelude's still with you. That's awesome that you've been hanging on to it all these years. And glad you got a TL Type S. That's a nice find too. Those are rare and really sweet cars. So congrats on finding one of those. And it's got to be a really fun daily driver experience. So that's awesome. Thanks for stopping by. And Excalibur says on the fence for RS3 or M2, which is more fun? I guess it depends on what you enjoy as far as fun goes. For me, rear-wheel drive is always more fun. So in my mind, if you enjoy tail happy antics, M2 is going to be the more fun because there's a little more control there. There's a little more skill required, to not put it into a tree. So I mean, there's those types of things that I think I find more rewarding about rear-wheel drive. So but I really love RS3s. So personally, also because like Pittsburgh, we do get snow and stuff where I do appreciate all-wheel drive. I would go RS3 between those two, just because M2 is really good. I'm not crazy about the styling. I'm not crazy about like it has a really high seating position, which is kind of weird. It feels like Mustang levels of high seating position. Honestly, maybe even a little higher than Mustang. It's kind of wild. RS3, I love how small and compact it is. It really envelops you and depends on, I guess, your body type and everything. But me being a smaller guy, like I like smaller cars and they don't annoy me like they might for other people that might be taller or larger. But RS3 is just, I think it's a little more special than M2, partially because, I mean, all of these, high output engines are probably endangered in the long term, but the 5-cylinder from Audi probably, it can't be living much longer than it is, here for the next year or two. So, I mean, I think RS3 is also one of those like almost last chance kind of things. Again, maybe it won't be, but, just kind of feels that way. And I think being able to experience that specialness now is why I'd probably go RS3 as well versus M2. There's going to be a next generation, just like we're seeing, M3 is going to have a new next gen gas and an electric version. I think we may see something similar with M2 down the road. And so I don't think it's the end of the line yet for that vehicle. So I think that's why I'd probably go RS3. But they're just fun in their own ways. With RS3, you have a bunch of grip, you have the diffs doing all their fun stuff. And it is also tail happy because of the skinnier rear tires in the RS3. So, I mean, there are some real advantages there, but I think, I think for me, it would probably be RS3. Both are fantastic choices, so I can understand why you're on the fence. It's a fun fence to be on there, but congrats on getting to that point where you can afford either of those. But yeah, I'd probably go RS3. Watch my 2 videos on them if you haven't already. That might give you more info and help tip the scales one way or another for you. But both are a lot of fun. And I see we actually did just hit the 1 hour mark here. So I see Chad has a super chat. I will then just prioritize all the member questions and then we will head out here. But Chad, thank you for the super chat. He says Caliber Mirage combo review. That'd be fun. Yeah, 2 of the, I mean, Mirage, as much as Mirage, is also, not an impressive car. I think Mirage is reliable. It does, kind of just achieve its mission. And, yes, it's bare bones, but it is a good little car, I'd say, from what I've known about it. Obviously, it's not safe, really. It's not, it's got a lot of shortcomings, but Mirage, I wouldn't expect to fall apart around me like Caliber would. So I don't know if Mirage is worthy of a roast. I think it'd be a funny review. But I think at the end of the day, I'd have to give Mirage credit where credit's due for the things that it does do. And the fact that, it's the last of its kind of really basic car, and it's also, going away here. But that would be be fun to do. I want to do more of those kind of things for sure. Again, I have some gaps coming up in my schedule here, hopefully, where I'll be able to go out and film some used reviews. And I'm going to try and do some out of the ordinary stuff if I think I can get some views on it. So, stay tuned for that here later this summer. And Chad, thank you again for the super chat. And thanks for the love, everyone here. And so, last few questions again. I'm just going to do the member ones, then we'll sign off. And then, again, stay tuned for Sunday's live or next Wednesday, or again, send me a message if you don't want to wait till then to have your question answered here. But Luke says, after having my Maverick Hybrid since March, I'm sold on the hybrid. I like the response. I play games with myself on how many EV miles I can get. Yeah, the hypermiling is a really fun thing to do with hybrids, and yeah, I always love doing that in Priuses, and especially the Fords. They show you how much of your driving is done electrically, which is a really fun metric that most others don't typically show you outside of Toyota and Ford there. So yeah, that is really fun. So I'm glad you're enjoying the hybrid, and it should hopefully save you a lot of money in the long haul as well. Let me see. So Vishal says, do any Prime Day shopping? I finally bought a dash cam for my car after saying I'd get one for years. That's awesome. Well, definitely a good idea to get a dash cam. I have actually, I did buy one thing for Prime Week, and it is an accessory for Beth's new car. So stay tuned for that. I'll highlight the little accessory in the video whenever we do all of that. Yeah, stay tuned for that here at some point towards the end of this month. Still a little fuzzy on exactly when we'll be getting it. But and by the way, anyone, if you are doing any Prime Day shopping, I do have the link to the dash cam that I used to run on the Bullet last year. It's the Vantrue 4K one. I have a link to my Amazon storefront that I'm sure most people don't even realize I have, but it's in the description of every video. And it's just like, here's my camera gear or whatever, and it shows all the stuff that I use, all the product links for all that stuff. But so that's where you can see the dash cam that I recommend, that I've really enjoyed. There's a lot of good ones out there, but if you're curious which one I ran, that's listed on my little storefront there. And also anyone else, if you're ever getting into doing car reviews or anything like that, again, all my gear is listed there to help you start as well. Let me see. Chad says, I thought it was funny that when you adjusted the seat through the info system, it looked like the actual button on the side of my seat. That's funny. Yeah. There's more and more of that, of like adjusting seats in screens, and I don't love it because it's nice to be able to make little adjustments, especially me being in and out of cars every week. It's nice to be able to, fiddle with that with an actual button. Let me see. Truck and Car Guy says, Grand Wagoneer has its own issues, much less competing with Navigator and Escalade. Yeah, they do certainly have some issues. I'm hoping some of those issues have been worked out. I know the one I had a few years ago was buggy, but that was, again, I think 2022. So I surely hope that they've at least figured out the infotainment bugs. I know there's some other issues, I think, with them too, but hopefully they got to get better with that, because, I mean, there's no way they're going to have a viable business in the future if like everything is just a reliability nightmare for them. So hopefully they've gotten better. I haven't checked recently, but I hope the Grand Wagoneer is better than it used to be. Steve Vishal says about our discussion earlier with the Navigator, how he doesn't like how features are forced on us. Not quite the same as the Navigator, but when I was buying the Jetta, I opted for an SE without the sunroof because I didn't want it, which there's more choice. Yeah, I think, it's really important to have that choice for people. Because not everyone needs everything. And I also just think it's a slippery slope. If you try some of these things, then you don't want to have them. You don't want to not have them in the future. And then you kind of get hooked on higher trims, which is an expensive game. So, that's why I recommend, if you're content with whatever content level you're at currently for your car, stick to that. Because otherwise, like I said, you never want to go back once you start adding on features. And let me see. So, Danny's also asking, parents are thinking about a Trailblazer. The new shape Trailblazer is a decent first car. I don't love Trailblazer, honestly. I think if you want something cheap like that, I mean, maybe if you really need all-wheel drive, but honestly, I'd say get a Trax and get snow tires. Trax is so much better for less money than Trailblazer. It's really hard for me to recommend Trailblazer to anybody, or Encore for that matter. You're definitely better off with Trax, unless you really do intense snow driving. But again, front wheel drive with snow tires will get you through, a lot of stuff. So I think that would be my recommendation. I wouldn't recommend Trailblazer personally, just not enough space. There's so many other vehicles in that segment that are either less expensive or the same money that are so much better. You can check out my Trailblazer review or any of those vehicles in that segment if you're curious. And maybe used, they're a lot cheaper than some of the competitors. I'm not sure, but I don't love Trailblazer unless it's maybe a lot cheaper than the competitors. And let me see here. Chat says, thanks for keeping these midweek chats, Matt. It's always a nice chat. Thanks for stopping by, chat. I'm glad you enjoy them. And yeah, I really enjoy them here as well. So let me see here. Last few here. Immutable Dew says 4 power boost is a gas generator backup for power outages or job sites. Problem with the lightning is what happens when the battery gets low. Right. So I mean, the lightning, it's only a temporary thing. That's definitely what it's for. And if you have it combined with solar, then that does work better that way, because then the solar eventually will recharge the car and the house, by extension as well there. So that's really the real setup. If you want to really be, grid independent, is solar obviously is just like the way to do that, on its own. But then, if you don't want to spend money on a battery backup, Tesla Powerwall or things like that, then, lightning is great. Because that's really the thing that I would say for people who are truly worried about long-term power outages. Like, you can stockpile gas, but like it's like gas pumps still turn off whenever there's power outages. Unless maybe there's really old school ones, but any modern gas pump is electric. So you run into the same problem with gas, is gas outages. And this was the thing whenever there was the bad flooding in Louisiana a few years ago. It was like, well, everyone was out of gas too, because all the gas pumps didn't work. So that's why, if you are really trying to be, again, energy independent, solar is the way to do it. And then have an EV, because then you can charge your own vehicle. And if you don't have gasoline from a gas pump for weeks or months, as long as you got sun or you have solar generating, you can drive indefinitely off of your own energy production. You have your own power plant with solar and an EV, and you'll have unlimited mobility, versus gas will run out. You will have your stockpile run out. You will have gas pumps stop pumping, with electricity outages and stuff. So that's why I think that's the dream for me. Is I'd love to put solar on our roof someday. And then that way I never have to worry about our EVs ever running out of a charge. So that's kind of, I think, if you're really worried about doomsday stuff, it's surprising because doomsday people typically aren't into EVs. But to me, that's the best way to actually protect yourself if you're worried about mobility and all that. But anyway, so let me see. Vishal says, probably been at least a decade since I've seen a caliber. I still see darts occasionally, though. Well, I'm glad you're seeing darts at least. I'm glad it's not just me that has seen the calibers evaporate. Then Luke says, I've seen a couple calibers here and there. I also think Dodge Stratus was crap. Yeah, but I feel like they did have some staying power, because that was still that generation of the cloud cars, I think, is what they were referred to as there, where they all kind of did last a good long while. I feel like I saw them well into the 2000s before they finally started to dry up. Let me see. Trenton Car Guy says, since someone brought up the Magnum earlier, mine just crossed 240,000 miles earlier this week. That's awesome. I'm so glad that yours has gone the distance. And there's a good example. I mean, that's the Pentastar V6, but a Dodge that is reliable and has gone a long ways for you. I'm sure you've put some money into it. I'm sure, along the line there, but obviously nothing that's been career ending for the car. And that's awesome. And Trenton Car Guy also says, I also have a new coworker at my job who drives a Mirage. Nice. And Blacked Out Fan is coming in here at the end, says, hi, Matt. I don't mean to be annoying, but I think Mirage still has a keyed ignition. I think you might be right, although I think there is a push button start in some of them. Maybe not all of them. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, so we'll sign off here for tonight. Thanks so much for a great chat, everyone. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Stay safe. Yeah, stay safe and stay healthy, and and don't get mentally mixed up like me. And I'll see you guys on Sunday for the next one. Stay tuned, by the way, for the reveal of the new CX-5 here tomorrow morning, bright and early. That'll be going live, and some more good stuff here throughout the rest of the week here. But anyway, thank you so much once again, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for all your support, and take care.